So I'm going to start at the absolute lowest level. So we're going to go all the way down the stack to IP, or the Internet Protocol. So I'm sure most people have heard of an IP address. And so that's the level we're going to be operating on here for the beginning here of my explanation. So what is IP? IP is basically a way where you can take a message, a packet of data, and it's kind of like an envelope. You can sort of stamp a destination on the outside of the envelope and say to your router, hey, please try to deliver this to this IP address. And every computer on the network, every device on the network is assigned an IP address. And the internet as a whole sort of just tries its best to route these little packets of information to the correct destination based on the IP address. Okay, so that's the lowest layer. And then on top of that, there's two main protocols that people have sort of added on top, which are called TCP and UDP. So TCP is the more common of the two, and it gives you a bunch of nice sort of reliability enhancements on top of IP. So you can sort of, as an application, say, I want to send like this giant chunk of data, in fact, too big to actually fit in a single envelope. And your operating system will split that data up into little individual packets of information and send that across the internet. But it will do a bunch of nice things like stamp little number sequences onto each of those so that the recipient can assemble them in the right order. And it also ensure that if one of the envelopes doesn't arrive, that there's a way where the recipient can effectively ask the sender to send that data again, right? Something like that. Speaking really high level here. And so anyway, that's TCP. And that's what most applications use. And then there's this other one called UDP, which is like really simple. It's just like IP almost. You just you stick an envelope in the mail. Maybe it'll arrive, maybe it won't. It adds one additional concept on top of IP, which is the idea of a port. So a port is just like when the recipient gets the packet and they open it up and they look at the data inside, there'll be a little port number attached, which says effectively which application on my computer should this packet be delivered to. And the operating system will, based on that port number, deliver the packet to maybe the web server on your computer or the mail program on your computer or some other program on your computer. And that's basically what UDP is. It's a really light layer on top of IP. So where I'm going with this is just that these are basically what all the applications that we use are built with, right? And for many years, when you're building a native app, you want to have it talk to some other computer, this is what you're going to do. The problem arises when you start to think about the browser. Because in the browser, you don't necessarily want random sites that you're visiting being able to send packets in this manner. Like, I'll just give you one really simple example to think about why maybe you don't want this. All the devices on your home network have IP addresses. And so if you go to a site and that site could send just arbitrary packets to any IP address, one of the things that could happen is, say your printer is on your network, an ad on a website that you're visiting could send some packets to your printer and cause some pages to start coming out, right? That's just really unintuitive for people.
Free coupons.
Yeah. And so basically the sort of boundary that has historically been in place here is that if you install an application on your computer, you're trusting that application to be able to do TCP and UDP. You sort of said, I trust this thing. I'm going to let it talk to devices on my network. I'm going to let it talk to computers on the internet. No problem. But in the browser context, this is just because of historical reasons. All these printers and all these different devices have been built in such a sort of insecure way. They assume that if somebody can send the packets to the printer, well, then they must be a trusted person because, hey, they got on the Wi-Fi network and they were able to, send me packets. And so because of that, we had to basically invent a whole new thing for the web to be able to make connections in a safe way. And that's where WebRTC comes in. And that's where I'll turn it over to Suze to go from there.
Very nice for us.
That is a beautiful handoff that dovetails nicely into signaling.